So I was coming home from work last week, and as soon as I got into the area near my house, I circled around the block a few times looking for parking. Now this day happened to be raining pretty hard, so I was trying to look for a space nearby my house. After about 5 minutes, I finally found a space right outside the dry cleaners. And for those of you that don't know, the spaces outside dry cleaners, at least in San Francisco, tend to have green paint on them. And what that means is basically the parking is free for 10 minutes. Now usually the 10-minute rule applies only for weekdays from roughly 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock p.m. So working hours, so that their customers can park for 10 minutes, pick up the dry cleaning or whatnot. So technically you should be a customer, but nobody really follows that rule. So anybody, as long as they're within 10 minutes, can park there and park for free. Now I was coming home and it was about 5:50 p.m. So since the space's rules expire at 6 o'clock, basically once you get there at 5:50 you have the 10 minutes during the rule time, and after that it's unlimited until the next morning at 9, unless the next morning is Saturday. But in this case it was I think a Wednesday. So no big deal. I mean, I could park there now, park until the next morning, and I'd have work the next morning, so I didn't have to worry about it. So I thought, yeah, I'll take the space. And I drove by it a little bit in order to prepare to reverse into a parking space. So I think most of you know this, but for people that park in places where there's tons and tons of parking, parallel parking space in San Francisco, it's very common to reverse, and it's easier for your car to, I mean, most of you people that park know this. It's common knowledge. So I went a little by the parking space, and as I was reversing into the green space, this BMW driver pulled into the green space, blocked half the space, and stopped there. I guess they were a customer of the dry cleaning place. I don't know what they were doing, but I sat in my car seeing what they would do, and they just sort of sat in their car too. It almost felt like they were looking at what I was going to do. So after they parked in this space, they decided to leisurely wait in the car for a minute or two. I have no idea what they're doing, and it's raining outside, so I just kind of sat it out, see what they would do for the next move. I don't think they really wanted the space either. I think they were actually there to pick up their dry cleaning, so I don't know why they couldn't understand. I mean, it's like my reverse lights were on, you know, it's obvious I want to keep going back. They were on for, what, 1 or 2 minutes. So after a long 1 or 2 minutes, they decided to get out of the car, go into the dry cleaners to begin the pickup process for their clothing. So I decided to wait. I thought it'd be 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops. Well, what happened was they took a lot longer than 2 or 3 minutes. At one point I was thinking, well, it's probably pretty rude to go in and ask them to move their car back like 5 feet. So I thought I'd just wait it out. How long could it be, right? Well, it ended up taking probably a little over 10 minutes. Now, even though it's pretty obvious that I just drove by this place just to reverse into it, I thought, well, okay, technically I'm not a customer of the business, so even though I don't have an obligation to yield, I thought, okay, it's reasonable that I'm yielding to this customer until 6 p.m. So I decided to wait it out. And eventually they slowly came back to their car. By this time it's way past 6 p.m., okay? Now, another thing about this situation is that I drive an old beater car. Beater car meaning it's old, it's kind of doesn't run perfectly, but it's cheap, it's kind of reliable, you know, gets you from A to B, and since I was recently a college student, it's a perfect car for me. It also has some nice dents and dings, give it a little bit of character, so all the ladies love it. So I don't know about you guys, but in San Francisco, gas is one of the most expensive in the entire USA. So at the week that this happened, gas happened to be averaging about $4.30 a gallon. And my car is a car that, if I don't open the hood of the car to jiggle the battery, it might not start. So I was sitting there for over 10 minutes. Of course I didn't think it'd be that long, but I was sitting there with my engine on, with the gas costing $4.30 or more per gallon, and I didn't want to shut off the engine because then possibly it wouldn't start. I'd have to get out in this soaking rain, open up the hood, shake the battery, come back into the car. If it wasn't raining, this wouldn't be a problem, but luck has it that it was. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So after they got back to their car, they didn't move right away. They were just sort of leisurely talking on their phone. I could see them, you know, it was raining, but I could see through the droplets that they were just talking on their phone. Visibility wasn't that bad. And so after a couple more minutes of this, I decided to open my window and kind of gesture them to please move back 5 feet so I can properly park in the space and go home. So instead of moving, this person decides to very nicely say, "What are you doing?" To which I replied, "I want to park here." And I was only shouting so that they can hear me. That's not a proper space, it's red. Now let me point out, I was actually half in the space in front of me, which was a fire hydrant, so obviously it was red, but I was half in the green space and I wanted to reverse further back so that I could park in it. It's green! You're in half the space, so I can't park. After this, they didn't say anything further, but after another minute or so, they just drove off. Fine. So I happily put my car back in reverse and I parked into the space. And one thing I learned from this was, you know those situations when you just have no idea what people are doing? It doesn't really mean that they're stupid. Like, they might actually be planning to do something that really makes sense. Like, just because you don't know what they're doing, you get frustrated with them. Oh, and funny thing about the end of this story was, right before I was deciding to turn my engine off, I looked in my side view mirror, and down the street I actually saw a space right next to my house. So I just busted a U real quick, slided into that space, didn't even have to reverse, got out of my car, barely got wet, and I was parked right next to my house. So, no hard feelings to the BMW driver. Alright, so I don't know what day you guys are watching this, but right now as I'm recording, it's Saturday night, so I gotta go out, you know, all the ladies be calling me, my phone's blowing up, so I'll see you guys. Have a good weekend, or week. Okay, thanks, bye.